Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never planned on working the night shift at a Wendy's in rural Ohio. Back in 2019, I was 24, broke, recently divorced, and trying to rebuild my life after everything collapsed at once. My ex-wife, Melissa, had left me 6 months earlier after our son died from a heart condition we didn't even know he had. One normal morning, he was eating cereal in front of cartoons, and by evening we were standing in a hospital hallway, listening to a doctor explain why our 4-year-old wasn't coming home. After that, nothing in my life stayed together. I stopped sleeping properly. I stopped talking to people. Melissa blamed me for not noticing our son's symptoms earlier, and honestly, part of me blamed myself too. We sold our apartment in Columbus and went separate ways. I moved 2 hours east to a small town called Ashton Ridge. Population barely 6,000. The only job I could get quickly was at a Wendy's off Route 33 near the interstate. The place stayed open until 2 a.m., mostly serving truckers, drunks, and exhausted travelers passing through Ohio at night. At first, the job felt numb and easy. That's what I wanted back then. Something where I didn't have to think. But after what happened during those night shifts, I'd give anything to go back to the life I thought was miserable. Because at least back then, I wasn't afraid to close my eyes. The Wendy's sat alone near a dead stretch of highway surrounded by woods. During the day, it looked harmless enough. Red signage, faded parking lot, cracked drive-through speaker that buzzed every time someone ordered. At night, though, the place felt wrong, especially after midnight. The first weird thing happened during my second week. It was around 12:40 a.m. My manager, Denise Harper, was counting cash drawers in the office while I cleaned tables in the lobby. Outside, heavy rain slammed against the windows hard enough to blur the parking lot lights. Then the front door opened. A man walked in slowly. I remember him clearly because everything about him looked outdated. He wore a brown suit soaked with rainwater, like something from the 1970s. Thin tie, black leather shoes, gray hair plastered to his forehead. But what stood out most was his face. He looked terrified, not nervous, terrified. His eyes kept darting toward the windows like someone had followed him there. "Sir," I asked, "kitchen's still open if you want to order." He ignored me at first and walked straight to the corner booth furthest from the windows. Then he whispered, "Did you lock the back door?" I laughed awkwardly. I think so. You need to check." Something in his voice bothered me. I walked into the kitchen and checked anyway. Locked. When I came back, the man was staring at the parking lot. Rain poured outside in sheets. "No cars out there," I told him. He nodded slowly but didn't relax. Then he said something I still think about almost every night. "He found me once already." Before I could ask what he meant, Denise stepped out of the office and immediately froze. She looked pale. "Sir," she said quietly, "you need to leave." The man turned toward her. "You remember me?" Denise didn't answer. That's when I noticed her hands shaking. "Denise?" I asked. "Tyler," she snapped without looking at me. "Go back to the kitchen." I stayed where I was. The old man stood up slowly. "He's still driving that truck," he whispered. Denise looked genuinely scared now. "Please leave." The man stared at her for several seconds before walking toward the exit. But before opening the door, he looked directly at me and smiled. Not a friendly smile, a warning. Then he walked into the rain and disappeared into the darkness beyond the parking lot lights. Denise locked the front door immediately after he left. "What was that about?" I asked. "Nothing. That guy knew you. He's homeless, talks crazy. Don't worry about it." But she wouldn't look me in the eyes. The next night I asked one of the cooks about the old man, Marcus. Big guy, former Marine, worked grills overnight. The moment I described him, Marcus stopped cooking. "You saw Walter?" "Who?" "Walter Grayson." "Who's that?" Marcus lowered his voice. "He used to work here." I laughed. "That guy looked 80. He'd be around 70 now." "Then why'd he look terrified?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Finally he muttered, "Because his brother disappeared here." That got my attention. Marcus explained that back in 1998, before the Wendy's was remodeled, Walter and his younger brother Dean worked overnight maintenance together. One night Dean vanished. Police thought he ran away or got killed hitchhiking, but Walter claimed something else happened. According to him, Dean got into an argument with a truck driver behind the restaurant near the dumpsters. After that, Dean disappeared forever. Walter supposedly spent years telling anyone who listened that the truck driver murdered his brother and hid the body somewhere in the woods nearby. But they never found anything, I asked. Marcus shook his head. Thing is, Walter kept coming back here afterward, for years. Why? He said the truck driver came back too. The kitchen suddenly felt colder. That's insane, Marcus shrugged. Maybe, but every overnight worker here has stories. I laughed nervously again, but this time it sounded fake even to me. 3 nights later, I saw the truck. At around 1:15 a.m., a dirty black semi rolled slowly into the parking lot. No company logo, no license plate on the front bumper. The truck just sat there idling. Its headlights faced the building. I watched from the drive-through window. Customer? Marcus asked. I don't know. The truck remained parked for nearly 10 minutes. Engine rumbling, headlights glowing. Then it slowly drove around the building toward the back dumpsters. Denise immediately stood up from her office chair. Oh no, she whispered. She grabbed her keys. Everyone stay inside. What's going on? I asked. But she was already hurrying toward the rear exit. I followed her anyway. Outside, cold wind whipped through the alley behind the restaurant. The semi sat near the dumpsters with its engine running, but no driver was visible. Denise approached cautiously. Hello? No response. Then I heard it. A metallic banging sound from inside the trailer. Bang! 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 Like someone trapped inside. Denise stopped walking instantly. Her face drained white. We're leaving, she said quickly. Another bang echoed from the trailer. This one louder. Then came scratching. Long, desperate scratching against metal. I felt every hair on my arm stand up. Call police, Denise whispered. Before I could move, the truck's headlights suddenly shut off. The entire back lot went dark, and from inside the trailer, someone screamed. Not a normal scream, pure terror. Marcus burst through the back door holding a tire iron. What the hell? Then the semi's engine roared violently. The headlights flashed back on, and the truck sped backwards so fast it nearly hit us before tearing out of the alley and disappearing onto Route 33. The screaming stopped instantly. Police searched the highway for over an hour. They found nothing. No truck, no driver, nothing. After officers left, Denise finally admitted part of the truth. 20 years earlier, another Wendy's employee claimed they heard screaming from a black semi parked behind the building. The next morning, Dean Grayson vanished. You think it's connected? I asked. Denise rubbed her face tiredly. I think people see what they want to see. But her voice lacked conviction. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. The drive-through headset would activate by itself around 1 a.m. static. Heavy breathing, sometimes whispering. One night I answered automatically, Welcome to Wendy's, what can I get started for you? Silence. Then a weak voice whispered, Help me. I froze. Hello? Please. The voice sounded distant, male, young. Then loud static exploded through the headset hard enough to make me rip it off. Marcus looked disturbed. You heard it too? I nodded slowly. He stared toward the dark drive-through lane outside. That sounded like Dean. After that night, Denise started closing early whenever storms rolled through town. She never explained why. Until November 17th, the night everything finally broke apart. A thunderstorm hit Ashton Ridge around midnight. Power flickered constantly. Rain hammered the roof so hard conversation became difficult. At 12:53 a.m., the black semi returned. This time all of us saw it. The truck parked directly outside the lobby windows. Engine idling. No lights. No visible driver. And then, the front door opened. Walter Grayson walked inside, dripping wet from rain. But this time he looked different. Desperate, panicked. He's here, Walter whispered. Denise stood up immediately. You need to go. Walter ignored her. He took Dean. We know, Denise said shakily. No, Walter snapped. You don't. Then he looked at me. You ever wonder why nobody found a body? I didn't answer. Walter pointed toward the kitchen freezer. Because he hid him in there first. Silence filled the restaurant. Marcus slowly lowered the spatula in his hand. Denise looked like she might faint. Walter continued. The truck driver worked with somebody inside. My stomach tightened. Who? I asked. Walter stared directly at Denise. She helped him. Denise suddenly shouted, Stop talking! Walter backed away from her. You told police Dean left town. You lied. I was protecting myself. Marcus looked stunned. What? Denise burst into tears. He threatened me. He said he'd kill me too. The lights flickered violently overhead. Outside, thunder shook the building. Walter pointed toward the parking lot. He came back because he knows I finally remembered his face. I looked outside. For the first time, I saw someone sitting behind the truck's steering wheel. A man, huge, motionless, watching the building. Then the truck's horn blasted suddenly, loud. Everyone jumped. Walter started shaking. That's him! The horn blasted again. Then the restaurant lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed everything. People screamed. I heard Marcus crash into something metal in the kitchen. Rain pounded outside. And then, footsteps. Heavy boots walking through the lobby. Not ours. Slow. Deliberate. I could barely breathe. Lightning flashed through the windows for half a second. And I saw a massive silhouette standing near the entrance. A man wearing a dark raincoat. Then darkness again. Walter screamed, Run! Chaos exploded. I heard tables overturning, glass shattering, Denise crying. I stumbled blindly toward the kitchen while footsteps thundered behind us. Then another lightning flash illuminated the room. The man had Walter by the throat. He was enormous, bald, pale face, dead expression. Walter clawed desperately at him. Then the lights came back on, and the man was gone. So was Walter. The front door swung open in the storm wind. Police arrived within minutes. They searched everywhere. No truck, no Walter, no footprints despite the rain. Nothing. But behind the restaurant near the dumpsters, officers found something buried beneath loose mud washed up by the storm. Human bones. Dental records later confirmed they belonged to Dean Grayson. The official investigation reopened immediately. Turns out Denise had hidden evidence years earlier because the truck driver had threatened her after she witnessed him attacking Dean behind the building. She never went to police out of fear. The truck driver was identified as a former meat supplier named Raymond Voss. But there was one problem. Raymond Voss died in prison 11 years earlier from a heart attack, which means the man we saw that night couldn't have been him. Denise quit 2 days later. Marcus transferred locations, and I never worked another overnight shift again. The Wendy's still operates today off Route 33 near Ashton Ridge. Most people driving past it would never notice anything strange, but sometimes truckers stop there late at night claiming they hear banging noises from behind the restaurant. Others report seeing an old man sitting alone in the corner booth staring out the window during storms. Employees say if the drive-through headset crackles around 1 a.m., you should never answer it, because every once in a while, a weak voice whispers back, "Is he still there?" I moved away from Ohio in 2021, but even now, years later, I still wake up some nights hearing that truck horn in my dreams. Long, deep, echoing through rain, and every time I hear it, I see Walter's terrified face right before the lights went out, like he already knew nobody was leaving that Wendy's alive. Story 2. It was a hot summer evening in 2022, the kind of day where the air felt thick and sultry. I had just finished a long day at work in downtown Chicago, and the only thing on my mind was a delicious burger from my favorite fast food joint, Wendy's. Unbeknownst to me, this visit would be unlike any other. As I drove down the familiar oak-lined streets of my neighborhood, I was particularly excited about trying the new spicy chicken sandwich. The sun was beginning to set, casting an orange glow across the sky. Little did I know Wendy's was hiding a sinister truth behind its cheerful facade. Upon arriving, the parking lot was eerily empty for a popular fast food location. I shrugged it off as just a slow night. The neon sign flickered gleefully, welcoming me as I stepped inside. I was immediately greeted by a young cashier named Sarah, who seemed a bit too cheerful for the lack of customers. As I placed my order, I noticed something strange about the decor. The usual cheerful images of fresh ingredients and smiling faces felt hauntingly off. I wondered if it was just the dim lighting playing tricks on my mind. While waiting for my food, I noticed an old man sitting alone in the corner booth, staring blankly at the floor. He looked as if he hadn't left that spot in days. Curiosity piqued, I approached him and asked what he was doing there all alone. He raised his head slowly, and I was taken aback by his hollow gaze. "They don't let you leave once you've tasted it," he muttered cryptically. Before I could ask him what he meant, he turned away, lost in his thoughts again. Feeling unsettled, I returned to the counter just as Sarah handed me my order. "Enjoy your meal," she chirped, but her eyes betrayed a hint of worry. Taking my tray, I chose a table near the window, the oppressive air feeling almost claustrophobic. As I dug into my meal, the old man's words resonated in my mind. I glanced around the empty dining area, each table seemingly frozen in time. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat before the generator kicked in, bathing the interior in a dull yellow light. It was enough to send chills down my spine. Just then, I heard whispers, soft murmurs coming from the kitchen. My stomach twisted in knots as curiosity overtook my fear. I set down my food and crept towards the kitchen door, and as I got closer, the whispers grew louder, morphing into frantic gasps and panicked cries. Peering through the small window in the kitchen door, what I saw made my blood run cold. Workers who were supposed to be preparing food were instead huddled together, their faces twisted in horror as they looked up at the ceiling where shadows danced as if alive. I raised my hand to knock but froze at the sight of a figure emerging from the shadows. A tall, gaunt figure with hollow cheeks and a grotesque grin. In a moment of instinct, I stepped back suddenly, causing the old wooden floor to creak loudly. The kitchen fell silent. The figure turned, its gaze meeting mine through the glass. It lunged towards the door, and I stumbled back, heart racing. I bolted back to my table, my instincts urging me to flee. But the door to the restaurant swung shut, locking me inside. Sarah had vanished, and the air grew heavier with panic. I glanced around. The old man was gone too. It was as if the place had swallowed them whole. The only sound was the relentless beeping from the kitchen. Just as I contemplated my next move, the lights flickered again, and this time they went out completely. A darkness enveloped the room, and I could hear the faint sound of footsteps drawing closer. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, and I knew I had to find a way out. Desperate, I searched for another entrance. The bathroom door seemed like a potential escape route. I pushed it open, only to find that the restroom was eerily clean, but devoid of any windows. It felt more like a trap. The whispers returned, now sounding like a chant. They echoed in my mind, urging me to stay. With nowhere else to go, I returned to the main dining area, my feet dragging as if the air itself was holding me back. The kitchen door creaked open slightly, revealing the figure once again. This time, it stepped fully into the light, its grin widening, revealing rows of sharp teeth. A horrifying reminder that this was no ordinary Wendy's. Instinct kicked in, and without thinking, I dashed toward the front exit. As I reached the door, I threw my weight against it, and with a horrific screech, it gave way. I stumbled outside into the cool night air, gasping for breath. Once outside, I glanced back to see the restaurant standing peacefully under the moonlight, the shadows still dancing across the windows. The neon sign flickered as it had earlier, with no evidence of the nightmare within. Heart pounding, I collapsed on the curb, realizing I had narrowly escaped whatever dark force lurked within. I vowed never to return. Days turned into weeks and the memory faded, but the old man's words haunted me. I never learned what happened that night, but I found out later through local news. A string of disappearances, all linked back to that very Wendy's. The restaurant eventually shut down, but rumors of hauntings persisted. As for me, I moved to another city, forever changed by an experience that felt all too real. Story 3. I never imagined that a simple night shift at Wendy's would drag me into something I couldn't explain, something that still keeps me awake years later. My name is Ryan Callahan, and back in 2019, I was 28, freshly divorced and flat broke after my ex-wife cleaned out our savings. I needed any job that paid immediately, so when the now hiring night crew $15 per hour sign went up at the Wendy's on Route 224 in Mansfield, Ohio, I applied the same day. The manager, a tired-looking guy named Dave with a faded tattoo on his forearm, hired me on the spot. "Just don't mind the weird shit people say about this place," he muttered during my orientation. I laughed it off. Small-town gossip, right? The restaurant sat on the edge of town, right where the highway met the old industrial stretch that used to house steel mills before they all shut down in the 80s. It was one of those standalone buildings with the classic red and white awning, a drive-through that wrapped around the side, and a dimly lit dining room that smelled perpetually of fry oil and cleaning solution. Dave told me the place had been there since 1987, one of the first Wendy's in the county. What he didn't mention until later was the history buried under the parking lot. My first few weeks were normal enough. I worked 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. with a skeleton crew, me on grill and fries, a quiet college kid named Marcus on register, and a no-nonsense woman in her 40s named Carla who handled the drive-through window like it was a military post. Customers at that hour were mostly truckers, drunk college kids from Ashland University, or factory workers coming off third shift. Boring, predictable, safe. The first odd thing happened on a slow Tuesday night in late October. Rain hammered the roof like fingers tapping for attention. We were down to one car in the lot, a beat-up blue sedan that had been parked near the dumpster for over an hour. Marcus pointed it out. Guy ordered a Dave's double and never came to the window. Carla said he just left it. I shrugged and went to take out the trash before closing. The rain had led up to a drizzle. As I lifted the dumpster lid, I noticed the car was still there. Engine off, windows fogged. I approached, thinking maybe the driver was passed out. That's when I saw it. A single kid's Happy Meal toy, a small plastic frosty figure, sitting on the dashboard. But no one was inside. The doors were locked. I backed away fast, telling myself it was a prank or my eyes playing tricks in the dark. Dave pulled me aside the next evening. "Look, kid, this building's got stories. Back in '92, a family of 4 disappeared after eating here. Mom, Dad, 2 little girls. Their car was found exactly where that blue sedan was parked last night. Empty, doors locked from inside. Cops searched for weeks, never found them. Some say the dad snapped and did it, dumped the bodies in the old quarry 10 miles out. Others," he trailed off, wiping sweat from his brow despite the AC blasting. "Others say it was something in the meat, or something under the foundation. They built this place over an old pauper's cemetery from the 1800s. Company covered it up. Just keep the doors locked after midnight and don't go out back alone." I wanted to quit right then, but rent was due and my credit cards were maxed. I stayed. Things escalated slowly, building like pressure in a closed pot. Little things at first. The frost machine would turn on by itself, dispensing soft serve into an empty cup that wasn't there a second ago. The security cameras would glitch, showing static in the dining room, even though everything looked fine in person. One night, around 2 a.m., I heard a child's voice coming from the walk-in freezer. Clear as day. "Mommy, the Frosty is melting." I opened the door, heart hammering. Nothing but frozen bags of patties and fries. But the temperature had spiked to 40 degrees, and a small puddle of white cream sat in the center of the floor like a tiny footprint. Carla started calling in sick more often. Marcus grew quiet, staring at the security monitor for hours. "You ever notice how the drive-through speaker picks up extra voices?" he asked me once. "Not customers, whispers, like people arguing." I told him to lay off the energy drinks. The backstory kept unfolding in pieces. I looked it up on my phone during breaks. The missing family was the Hargroves, local news articles from 1992 still online. Father, Michael Hargrove, was a Wendy's regular who worked at the mill before it closed. Neighbors said he changed after his youngest daughter got sick. "Something about bad meat," they whispered in the comments sections. One article mentioned that the restaurant had received multiple health complaints that year. Undercooked burgers, strange aftertaste, customers reporting hallucinations. The company denied everything, replaced the supplier, and the story faded. But the disappearances didn't stop entirely. In 2008, a night manager vanished. His car found in the same spot. In 2015, a teenager who worked here part-time posted on social media about the lady in the corner booth who doesn't blink before deleting his account and moving out of state. I started seeing her too. It was early November, rain turning to sleet. The dining room was empty except for one woman sitting in the far corner booth, the one with the ripped vinyl seat. She wore an old-fashioned floral dress, hair in a messy bun, staring at a tray with a single untouched burger. I approached to tell her we were closing in 20 minutes. As I got closer, the air grew cold, like stepping into a walk-in. Her skin was too pale, almost translucent, and her eyes, they didn't reflect the fluorescent lights. "My girls are still hungry," she said without moving her lips. Her voice came from behind me, from the speaker system. I spun around, no one there. When I turned back, the booth was empty. The burger was gone, but a child's handprint remained in the condensation on the table. That night after closing, I was alone mopping the floor. Marcus had bailed early with a stomachache. Carla hadn't shown. The drive-through bell dinged. I ignored it at first. Probably a glitch. It dinged again, insistent. I went to the window. A voice crackled through the speaker, a man's voice, hoarse and desperate. 4 Dave's singles, 2 Frosties, and please just let them go. I leaned out. No car, just empty pavement glistening under the security lights. Then the real fear hit. The back kitchen lights flickered. From the grill area, I heard sizzling, like patties hitting hot metal, even though everything was powered down and clean. I smelled charred meat and something sweeter, like vanilla. I grabbed my keys, ready to run, but the front doors wouldn't open. The locks were engaged from inside, but the mechanism felt jammed, ice cold to the touch. That's when the whispers started in earnest. Multiple voices overlapping. A little girl giggling, a mother shushing, the father pleading. They weren't coming from one place. They were everywhere. In the vents, under the counter, inside the soda machine. I backed into the manager's office and locked the door. Dialing 911 with shaking hands. The call wouldn't connect. No service flashed even though I had full bars minutes earlier. I sat there for what felt like hours, but the clock on the wall only moved 5 minutes. A soft knock came at the office door. 3 light taps, like a child. "Mister, can we have more ketchup?" the voice asked. It was sweet, innocent. I didn't answer. The knocks grew harder, frantic. Then the voice changed to the woman's from the booth. "Michael always said this place would feed us forever. You work here now. You're part of the crew." I don't know what possessed me, but I yelled back, "What do you want?" Silence. Then a single sentence, clear and close, right against the door. "Finish the meal." The power went out completely. In the pitch black, I heard the freezer door creak open. Footsteps, small ones, padded across the tile toward the office. Something dragged behind them, heavy like a trash bag. I pressed myself against the far wall, praying. The temperature dropped so low my breath fogged. A child's hand, ice cold and impossibly small, slid under the door gap and grabbed my ankle. I screamed and kicked. The hand retreated. Lights flickered back on. The front doors clicked, unlocked. I ran. Outside, the blue sedan was back in the parking spot. This time, 4 figures sat inside, silhouettes. A man in the driver's seat turned his head slowly toward me. His face was the color of undercooked beef. The children in the back waved. The woman in the passenger seat smiled with too many teeth. I quit the next morning. Dave didn't seem surprised. "They always come back for new crew," he said, handing me my last paycheck. "The foundation's hungry. Wendy's feeds the living. Something else feeds on what we leave behind." I moved to Columbus after that. New job, new life. But every time I pass a Wendy's, even now, I hear the ding of the drive-thru in my head. Last month, I saw a news article online. Another disappearance at that same Mansfield location. A night worker this time. His car found locked empty with a half-eaten Frosty on the hood. I know they're still there, waiting for the next person desperate enough to take the shift. If you ever drive through Mansfield late at night and see the lights on at that Route 224 Wendy's, keep going, don't stop. Don't order, and whatever you do, don't look too closely at the family in the corner booth. They've been waiting a long time for someone to finish their meal. Story 4. I took the night shift at Wendy's because I had no other choice. I never believed people when they said a building could remember things, especially not a Wendy's. Back in October of 2021, I was 26 years old, broke, recently divorced, and sleeping in the guest room of my older cousin's apartment in Dayton, Ohio. My life had collapsed so fast it felt unreal. 1 month earlier, I'd been living in Indianapolis with my wife Emily, working HVAC jobs and trying to save money for a house. Then Emily found out I'd hidden debt from her. She left 3 days later. I don't blame her anymore. When I moved to Dayton, I needed work immediately, and the only place hiring overnight on short notice was a Wendy's off Interstate 75 near an industrial area called Northridge. The place sat alone beside a dark access road with an empty tire shop on one side and railroad tracks behind it. The manager who hired me was a tired-looking woman named Denise Harper. Mid-50s, smoked constantly, nervous eyes. During the interview, she asked me one strange question. "You okay working nights alone?" I shrugged. "Done it before." She stared at me for a second too long before nodding. "You'll mostly close with another employee till midnight. After that, it's cleaning and prep. Sometimes truck deliveries. Easy enough." Then she added something weird. "If somebody knocks after close, don't open the lobby door, even if they say they work here." I laughed a little. Denise didn't. That should have been enough warning. But when your bank account is negative $300, you ignore warning signs. My first week was normal. Grease burns, drunk customers, teenagers screaming through the drive-through speaker. The usual. The overnight cook was a skinny 19-year-old named Caleb Morris. Quiet kid, heavy eye bags, always looked exhausted. One night while we cleaned the grill, I asked him why turnover there was so high. He stopped scraping grease for a second. "You didn't hear?" "Hear what?" Caleb glanced toward the dark lobby windows. "About Travis." I shook my head. Caleb lowered his voice. "Guy disappeared here last winter." I laughed again, but weaker this time. "You serious?" "Overnight shift manager. Worked here 6 years. One morning Denise came in and found the fryers running, back door open, and Travis gone. No camera footage? That's the weird part. Cameras cut out for nearly 2 hours. Maybe he quit." Caleb looked at me carefully. "They found his car in the parking lot." Something cold moved through my stomach. I tried brushing it off, but after that conversation, the restaurant felt different at night. The building suddenly seemed too quiet whenever the drive-through died down. The railroad tracks behind the store bothered me most. Every now and then, around 2 or 3 in the morning, freight trains rolled past slowly enough to shake the walls. The lights would flicker during it. And every single time, Caleb stopped talking until the train passed, like he was listening for something. About 10 days into the job, I experienced the first thing I still can't explain. It was 1:40 a.m. Lobby closed, rain hammering the windows. Caleb was taking trash outside while I cleaned the soda machine. Then I heard knocking, 3 slow taps. I looked toward the front entrance. A man stood outside the glass doors, tall, broad shoulders, wearing a Wendy's uniform. At first I assumed it was another employee. Then I realized something was wrong. His uniform looked old, different logo, faded colors, and he wasn't moving, just standing there under the rain. Watching me? I walked closer to the glass. The guy's face looked pale gray beneath the parking lot lights. He slowly lifted one hand and pointed toward the back hallway. Then Caleb burst through the side door carrying trash cans. The second he saw the man outside, all the color drained from his face. "Oh my God," he whispered. "What?" "Don't open it." The guy outside smiled. Not normal smiling. Too wide. Like he'd forgotten how humans do it. Then the lobby lights flickered once, and he disappeared. Not walked away. Disappeared. I rushed to the glass doors expecting to see him running through the rain. Nothing. Empty parking lot. Caleb grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. "I told you not to open it." "What the hell was that?" But Caleb refused to answer. The next night he called off work. So did the next. Then Denise told me Caleb quit. No notice. Just gone. That left me alone on overnights. I almost quit too. But I needed the money, so I stayed. And that was my mistake. Around that time, small things started happening. The freezer door opening by itself, wet footprints appearing near the back hallway, the soda fountain turning on in the middle of the night. One morning at 3:17 a.m., I heard somebody whisper my name from the drive-through headset. Ethan! Static crackled afterward. I froze. Nobody was at the menu board. I checked cameras. Nothing. Then things got worse. On a Thursday night, a storm knocked out power across half the block. Emergency lights kicked on inside the Wendy's, bathing the kitchen in dim red lighting. I called Denise. No answer. Rain slammed the roof so hard I could barely hear myself think. That's when the drive-through sensor dinged. Somebody had pulled up. I looked at the security monitor. A dark pickup truck sat at the menu board. Engine idling, no headlights. I pressed the headset button. Welcome to Wendy's. What can I get started for you? Nothing. Static. Then breathing. Slow breathing. I felt goosebumps rise across my arms. Hello? The voice that answered sounded wet and distorted. Is Travis there? My stomach tightened instantly. I think you've got the wrong place. Long silence. Then, he never got to leave. The headset cut dead. I looked back at the monitor. The truck was gone. No headlights ever appeared. No engine sound. Nothing. Like it had never been there. That night I searched Travis online during my break. Travis Bennett, 34 years old. Missing since December 2020. No body found. Last seen working overnight at the Wendy's where I work now. There was even a local news article with his picture. Same broad shoulders, same face shape, same faded Wendy's uniform. The man outside the lobby door? I barely slept after that. Every shift became torture. But the worst night happened 2 weeks later. Halloween night. I almost called out because I had a fever and pounding migraine. But Denise begged me to come in because 2 employees were sick. The storm that night was worse than any I'd seen. Wind screamed around the building. Rain flooded parts of the parking lot. By midnight, the roads outside were nearly empty. At 1:12 a.m., the power flickered. At 1:14, all cameras went black, exactly like the night Travis disappeared. My chest tightened immediately. I called Denise 3 times. No answer. Then the back hallway motion sensor activated. The hallway connected to storage, the freezer, and the rear exit. I grabbed a flashlight from under the register and walked slowly toward the hallway. The air back there felt freezing cold. Not normal cold, like winter air. The flashlight trembled in my hand as I moved past the freezer. Then I heard it, dragging footsteps, slow, wet, coming from the storage room. I shined the flashlight toward the doorway. At first I saw nothing. Then a figure stepped partially into the beam. A Wendy's uniform, gray skin, water dripping onto the tile floor. Travis. His eyes looked wrong, cloudy, like old glass. His mouth hung slightly open. You need to leave, I whispered. He tilted his head. Then I noticed something horrifying. His right hand was missing 2 fingers. Fresh blood dripped from the stubs. He slowly raised his remaining fingers and pointed behind me. I turned instantly. Nothing there. When I looked back, he was closer, way closer, close enough for me to smell him. Rotten water. Mud. Something dead. I stumbled backward and dropped the flashlight. The emergency lights flickered red across his face. Then he spoke, and I swear to God his voice sounded like multiple people talking together. He's still here. The freezer door slammed shut behind me so hard the wall shook. I ran. I didn't care anymore. I sprinted toward the front counter, grabbed my keys, and headed for the lobby exit. But the front doors wouldn't open. The electronic locks were jammed. I pulled harder. Nothing. Then I heard footsteps behind me, slow, dragging, coming through the dining area. I turned. Travis stood near booth 7. Rainwater pooled beneath his shoes. He stared directly at me. Then another figure appeared behind him. Tall, wearing a black hoodie, face hidden. Real person, not Travis, not dead, human. My blood ran cold. The hooded man stepped forward slowly while Travis remained perfectly still beside him. That's when I understood something horrifying. Travis wasn't haunting the building. He was warning people. The hooded man suddenly rushed at me. I ducked behind the counter as he vaulted over it. A knife flashed in his hand. I grabbed a metal tray and swung blindly, catching him in the side of the head. He screamed and dropped the knife. I ran for the kitchen. The man chased me through the fry station, knocking baskets and pans everywhere. Then the train passed behind the restaurant. The entire building shook violently. Lights flickered, and for 1 second, I saw Travis standing directly behind the hooded man. The hooded man froze. His eyes widened in terror. Then something yanked him backward into the darkness near the freezer hallway. He screamed once, a horrible scream. Then silence. Complete silence. The train sound faded away. The emergency lights steadied. I stood there shaking so hard I nearly collapsed. 5 minutes later, police arrived after someone finally answered my 911 call. They searched the entire building. No hooded man, no knife, no blood, nothing. But near the freezer hallway, officers found something strange. 2 human fingers, old ones, partially decomposed. Dental records later confirmed they belonged to Travis Bennett. The police eventually discovered evidence hidden beneath the restaurant's old storage foundation. Apparently, years earlier, a drifter had been living in maintenance tunnels beneath the property without anyone knowing. Detectives believed Travis discovered him during an overnight shift and was attacked. The drifter vanished before police could catch him. They never found Travis's body, and they never explained what happened to the man who chased me that night. I quit the next morning. Never went back. A month later, Denise called me unexpectedly. Her voice sounded shaky. She said the Wendy's location was permanently shutting down after plumbing damage and structural issues near the foundation. Before hanging up, she said one final thing. "Ethan, after you left, the cameras started working again." I swallowed hard. "And?" Denise went quiet for several seconds. Then she whispered, "They recorded somebody standing in the parking lot at 3:17 a.m. "Who?" But deep down, I already knew. Her voice cracked. Travis was waving people away from the building. I never drove near that Wendy's again. Last year, I looked it up online out of curiosity. The building's gone now, demolished completely, but the empty lot is still fenced off. Nobody ever rebuilt there. And according to an old trucker I met outside Cincinnati, sometimes late at night, people driving past the abandoned property still report seeing a man in a faded Wendy's uniform standing near the railroad tracks in the rain. Not trying to get in, trying to warn people away. Story 5. I never planned to work the night shift at Wendy's. Back in the summer of 2021, I had just moved to a small town outside of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, after my father passed away from a stroke. My mother couldn't afford the apartment alone anymore, and college had suddenly become something distant and unrealistic. So I packed what little I owned into my rusted Chevy Malibu and drove 3 states away to stay with my older cousin, Derek. Derek lived in a quiet neighborhood in Marion, Iowa, where every street looked the same and every house had a flag hanging from the porch. The town itself felt peaceful during the day, but at night it became strangely empty. No traffic, no people walking, just long roads disappearing into darkness. I got hired at a Wendy's off Highway 13 less than a week after arriving. The building sat near a gas station and a closed-down movie theater that had been abandoned for years. During the interview, the manager, a tired woman named Melissa Harper, barely looked at my resume before hiring me. "You okay with nights?" she asked. "I need the money," I told her. She nodded slowly like she'd heard that answer 1,000 times before. The Wendy's stayed open until midnight, but the night crew usually cleaned until 2 in the morning. It wasn't hard work at first, mostly sweeping floors, wiping counters, cleaning grease traps, and handling the occasional late-night customer. The crew was small. There was Melissa, the manager, Trevor, a skinny 17-year-old who worked drive-through, Carmen, the cook who barely spoke, and me. Things felt normal during my first couple weeks, boring even, until Trevor disappeared. It happened on a Thursday night in October. Rain hammered the windows while thunder shook the building hard enough to rattle the soda machine. Around 11:40 p.m., Trevor told Melissa he was taking the trash out back. 5 minutes later, we heard the dumpster lid slam shut. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Melissa finally looked annoyed and muttered, "That kid better not be vaping outside again." She sent me to get him. The back parking lot was empty except for rainwater puddles reflecting the security lights. The dumpster stood open, swaying slightly in the wind. But Trevor wasn't there. His phone was lying face down near the dumpster, still unlocked, still playing music. I remember this cold feeling crawling up my spine as I picked it up. The rain had soaked the screen, but I could still see a fresh text message notification from an unknown number. Come see. That was it. No emojis. No explanation. Melissa called Trevor several times, then eventually called the police. Officers searched the area for over an hour, but nobody found anything. No blood, no footprints, nothing. The police assumed he ran away. Melissa acted like she believed that too. But after the officers left, I noticed something strange. She locked the back door immediately. Then she pulled down every window shade in the restaurant. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Nothing," she snapped too quickly, but her hands were shaking. The next night she gathered us before closing. "New rule," she said. "Nobody goes outside alone after midnight." Carmen didn't even react, like she'd heard it before. That bothered me more than anything. A week later, Trevor's missing posters were all over town. His mother came into Wendy's crying one afternoon, asking if anyone knew something the police didn't. Melissa kept apologizing and saying she wished she could help, but when Trevor's mom left, I noticed Melissa staring out the front windows toward the abandoned movie theater across the road. Her face had gone completely pale. That theater started bothering me too. During breaks, I'd sometimes look across the highway at the old building. The sign had collapsed years ago, and weeds had swallowed most of the parking lot. But every now and then, I saw movement inside. At first, I thought it was homeless people. Then one night, I realized the lights inside the theater had turned on. Just for a second. A flicker in the projection room window. Then darkness again. I mentioned it to Carmen while we cleaned the grill. She stopped scraping immediately. "You saw lights?" she asked quietly. "Yeah." She stared at me for several seconds before speaking again. "Don't look over there." That was all she said. Around mid-November, business got slower. Some nights we'd only get 3 or 4 customers after 10 p.m. One Friday, Melissa left early because her daughter was sick. That meant only me and Carmen stayed for closing. Rain fell again that night. I still remember the exact time everything changed. 12:47 a.m. I was mopping near the dining area when the drive-through headset crackled. "Welcome to Wendy's. How can I help you?" Silence, then breathing. Slow breathing. I repeated myself twice. Nothing. Finally, I walked to the window. A dark pickup truck sat there idling. Its headlights were off. I couldn't see the driver clearly because the inside cabin was completely dark. "You ordering something?" I asked. The breathing continued through the speaker. Then a man's voice whispered, "Check the theater." My stomach dropped instantly. "What?" The truck slowly drove away before I could react. No brake lights, no turn signal, just darkness swallowing it. I locked the drive-through window and told Carmen what happened. She immediately stopped what she was doing. "You need to leave," she whispered. "What are you talking about?" "I'm serious." Her voice sounded terrified. Before I could answer, the restaurant lights suddenly flickered. Once, twice. Then the entire building went dark. The fryers shut off. The soda machines died. Everything became silent except for rain hitting the roof. Emergency lights clicked on seconds later, casting the restaurant in dim red lighting. And then, 3 loud knocks hit the front glass. Bang! 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 I turned toward the entrance. A man stood outside in the rain, tall, wearing a dark hoodie, face hidden. He wasn't moving, just standing there staring inside. Carmen grabbed my arm hard enough to hurt. "Don't open the door." The man slowly lifted one hand, pointed across the highway toward the abandoned theater, then pointed at me. I felt frozen. After maybe 10 seconds, he walked away into the darkness beside the building. Police arrived 20 minutes later after Carmen called them. They searched around Wendy's but found nobody. One officer asked if we wanted an escort to our cars. Carmen immediately said yes. While walking outside, I glanced toward the theater. The projection room light flickered again, this time longer, and I swear, I saw someone standing in the window, watching us. I barely slept that weekend. Part of me wanted to quit immediately, but I needed money too badly. So Monday night I came back. Melissa looked exhausted when she saw me. "You hear anything weird this weekend?" she asked. "No." She hesitated, then quietly said, "Trevor wasn't the first employee." The room suddenly felt colder. "What do you mean?" Melissa rubbed her eyes before answering. 3 years ago, another night worker vanished, same way. Took trash out back and disappeared. "Why didn't you tell police about the theater?" Her expression changed instantly. "You stay away from that building." "Melissa, I mean it." That night dragged painfully slow. Around 1 a.m., Carmen went to clean the freezer while I wiped tables alone. Then I heard it. A phone ringing. Not from inside the restaurant. From outside, near the dumpster. I froze. The ringing continued. Slowly, I walked to the back door window. Trevor's phone lay in the parking lot. Ringing. The same phone police had taken weeks earlier. My chest tightened. That wasn't possible. The caller ID simply read unknown. I backed away immediately. Then the ringing stopped. A second later, a text notification sound echoed through the empty parking lot. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity, maybe. Or stupidity. But I unlocked the back door and stepped outside. Cold air hit my face instantly. The parking lot was empty. The phone sat near the dumpster, vibrating softly. I picked it up. One unread message: "He's watching you now." Suddenly, I heard movement behind me, fast footsteps splashing through puddles. I spun around. Nobody, but across the highway, the theater doors stood open, wide open, darkness inside, and something moved near the entrance. A figure, tall and thin, watching me. I ran back inside and locked the door so hard the glass shook. Melissa looked horrified when I told her. Instead of calling police this time, she just sat down heavily in a booth. "I should have closed this place years ago," she muttered. "What is happening?" She stayed quiet for a long time, then finally spoke. "When the theater shut down in 2008, a homeless man started living inside. People complained about seeing him watching cars from the roof. Cops removed him dozens of times. So, one night a teenager disappeared after sneaking into the building with friends. They found him dead under the stage weeks later." I felt sick listening. Melissa continued quietly. "After that, people kept reporting sightings. Employees from nearby businesses started vanishing, mostly night workers. Who is the man? No one knows." At 1:30 a.m., Carmen suddenly yelled from the kitchen. We rushed back there. The freezer door stood open. Inside, written across stacked meat boxes in red ketchup, were the words, "Come see." Melissa finally called police again. This time, officers searched the theater too. I watched from Wendy's parking lot as flashlights moved through broken windows. Then suddenly, every flashlight started moving fast. Like officers were running. One cop stumbled out the front doors, vomiting onto the sidewalk. Another officer shouted for backup. Nobody told us what they found, but after that night, police taped off the theater permanently. I thought things would finally calm down. I was wrong. 2 nights later, Melissa never showed up for work. Her car was found abandoned behind Wendy's. Driver door open, purse still inside. No sign of Melissa. Police questioned me and Carmen for hours. After that, Carmen quit immediately, which left only me. The Wendy's temporarily closed for a week, but corporate reopened it anyway. New staff arrived. New manager. Nobody talked about Trevor or Melissa anymore, like they'd never existed. I tried convincing myself it was over, until my final night there. December 18th, snow covered the parking lot outside. Business was dead. Around midnight, I took trash out back with another employee named Jake. While he lifted the dumpster lid, I noticed something across the highway. The theater doors were open again, and standing under the broken marquee was Melissa. At least I thought it was her. She stood completely still in the snow, head lowered. Jake saw her too. "Is that your old manager?" I started walking toward the highway without even thinking. "Wait here," I told him. Cars hissed past on the wet road as I crossed. The closer I got, the stranger she looked. Her Wendy's uniform was dirty and torn, hair hanging over her face. She never moved. "Melissa?" I called. No answer. I stepped onto the theater sidewalk. The smell hit me first, rotting, wet mildew, something dead. Then Melissa slowly lifted her head. It wasn't her. The face looked wrong. Too pale, eyes sunken black, skin stretched tight like wet paper, and the smile, I still have nightmares about that smile. It widened unnaturally as the figure whispered, "Come see." The theater doors slammed shut behind it. I ran. I don't even remember crossing the highway. Jake later told police I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I quit that same night, packed my things, left Iowa before sunrise. I never went back. Last year, curiosity got the better of me. I searched online for that Wendy's location. The restaurant had permanently closed after another employee disappeared during a night shift in 2024. And the theater? Still abandoned, still standing. Sometimes I wonder what was really inside that building. A killer, a cult, something worse. But every time I think about that frozen smile beneath the broken marquee, I remember one terrifying detail I never told police. When the figure looked up at me that night, its face wasn't Melissa's anymore. It was Trevor's. Story 6. It was a chilly October evening in 1999 when I first stepped into the small Wendy's on the outskirts of a quiet town in Ohio, Georgetown. The air was crisp and the leaves crunched under my feet as I approached the warmly lit sign that beckoned hungry passersby. Little did I know that this fast food restaurant would become the setting of a chilling tale that would haunt me for years to come. I was just a college student, working part-time to pay my tuition. The sweet aroma of fresh fries filled the air as I walked through the glass doors. The sound of the fryer and the chatter of customers formed a comfortable background hum. However, something unusual caught my attention. I noticed a flickering light in the back of the kitchen. As I began my shift, I was greeted by my coworkers, each one a mix of college students and locals. Everyone seemed cheerful, except for one employee named Sarah. She was an older woman with long, dark hair who kept to herself and would often stare out at the empty dining area as if she were waiting for someone. Rumors swirled among us. Some claimed she could hear voices, while others whispered of her unsettling past. One night, as I worked the fry station, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I turned my head and caught a glimpse of Sarah standing in the shadows of the kitchen, whispering softly. Although I was terrified, curiosity got the better of me, and I approached her. "Sarah, what are you doing back here?" I asked, trying to break the tension. She turned to me with a pale face. "I'm waiting for him," she said softly, her voice trembling. But before I could ask who, she turned away and continued her eerie vigil. As the days went on, I learned about the restaurant's unsettling history from my other coworkers. A decade ago, a regular customer, a man in his 40s, had mysteriously disappeared after frequent visits to the Wendy's. He was last seen sitting in a booth near the back, where Sarah often stood. What twisted my stomach was the fact that Sarah had served him on that fateful night. Some said he never left. Others whispered that he still roamed the building, looking for his last meal. One night, while closing up the restaurant, I heard strange noises coming from the dining area. Concerned, I grabbed a broom and cautiously stepped out from behind the kitchen doors. There, in the dim light, I saw the booth where the man had last been seen. The seat shifted slightly, as if someone was sitting there, waiting. My heart racing, I called out, "Is anyone there?" Silence enveloped the room. Brushing it off as my mind playing tricks, I returned to cleaning, but I couldn't shake the unease that settled in my bones. A few weeks later, the date of the man's disappearance arrived, October 30th. Sarah showed up for her shift wearing the same expression of dread I'd seen weeks before. That night, I was assigned to work the register, with Sarah stationed in the kitchen, where she seemed lost in her thoughts. Around midnight, I was preparing to close when I heard a faint voice coming from the booth. "Help me," it whispered, a sorrowful plea that chilled my blood. I looked over to see the seat in the booth had shifted again, and it was then that I saw him, a shadowy figure resembling the lost customer, his eyes hollow and filled with despair. "Help me," he repeated, reaching out with a skeletal hand. Panic surged through me and I stumbled backward, hardly able to comprehend what I was seeing. I ran to the kitchen, breathless. "Sarah, did you see that?" I gasped, my hands shaking. She looked up at me, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "I've been waiting for him to find peace." In that moment, I realized she hadn't been haunted by her past. She had been guarding a tragic secret. The customer had once been a beloved friend, and his untimely disappearance had shattered her life. Determined to help, I convinced Sarah to confront the spirit. We returned to the booth together, where she spoke softly to the shadow. "You're free," she pleaded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're not alone anymore." With her words, a warm light enveloped the figure, and he whispered, "Thank you," before he began to dissipate into the ether, finally finding peace. That night, for the first time in years, Sarah smiled genuinely, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her soul. From that day forward, Wendy's transformed into a place of comfort where laughter echoed amidst the delicious scent of burgers and fries. The haunted whispers ceased, but Sarah and I would often reminisce about that eerie night. Even now, whenever I pass that Wendy's, I can't help but think of the lives that have crossed paths within those walls. The haunting may have subsided, but the bond formed in those moments lingers, reminding me of the stories we carry and the lives we touch, even in the most unexpected of places.